Welcome to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast, where every week, Kirsten and Jeannie dive into the essential topics to fuel your business growth. From copywriting to course creation, mindset to video marketing, they've got you covered. Tune in for expert guest interviews on all things marketing and business, and learn how to work on your business, not just in it. So, get ready to unlock your business potential and take it to the next level.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We are very excited about our episode. We have Steve Werner of Hour of Champions. He is a former bond trader and entrepreneur turned mental wellness expert and coach. And today we're going to talk about how entrepreneurs navigate the noise to exceed goals. So it's lovely to have you, Steve. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited and honored.
I'm thrilled to talk about this concept of life and business filled with noise. How did you ever start using that word noise to describe kind of what's going on, in our minds and in the world around us?
I was hoping you might ask me something about that. As the introduction alluded to, I'm a former bond trader. I spent my career in the trading market, and subsequent to that, I started studying them. I've always been a student of the market and a student of life. And I found out that they run very similar. The markets go up and down based on a variety of factors that happen up to the second, up to the minute, and so do life. Along the journey of the ups and downs, it's the markets and life are both designed to shake you out, honestly, to see how much you can take sometimes. As the market goes down, it's always shaking out the players, the weak players that don't have the conviction to stay in. And life works the same way. When things get tough, we get shaken out of relationships. We give up a lot. And what I noticed was that the really, really great traders in the arena that I was able to compartmentalize and stay in the game often understood how to navigate the gyrations, those ups and downs of the market. And we often referred to that movement as just noise. They were inevitable circumstances that made the market go up and down all day long. And the real skilled traders were able to just navigate their way through and understand that was really just part of the journey. There's really good things that happen and really crummy things that happen up to the minute, up to the second, over the course of a week, a month, a year. And if you ever looked back at your life and kind of examined it, you'd see that there's been a lot of ups and downs. And the Stoics and the people that really get how to navigate this journey understand it's just noise.
Like maybe you have this great conversation and then you have someone who decides that they're not going to come to work with you. And then you have some good emails that went out, got good open rates. And then all of a sudden something else happens. I feel like your whole day kind of has those little ups and downs, right?
That was so perfectly stated. And yes, it could be the first half hour of the day. It could be the first 10 minutes of the day. You could wake up and get a call from your assistant, says that that person you've been trying to schedule has finally agreed. You get euphoric and you're celebrating in your own mind, and then you get a call back, oh, sorry, wrong podcast. They called the wrong person. And now you're like down in the doldrums and you just went from here to here. And one of my great coaches, and I've had many along the way for myself personally, said to me that a great coach has to help people define reality and understand that it moves up and down like this, and living moment to moment will create insanity.
And it's one of those things where we have to remind ourselves, like, who's to say what's good or bad? And there's a story around that. Like, we always, something happens and we realize we think it's really bad, but we sometimes don't realize that sometimes there's a gift and opportunity in all of the things that happen to us. Not that we always see it in that moment when we're stressed out, suffering in some way. How do you feel like business owners can better navigate that so there are going to be ups and downs, highs and lows in our day, in our week, in our month, in our year? How do you coach people on to kind of quiet that noise and stay in the game like those awesome traders did?
One of the things I do is I offer them the suggestion, is it better to be the victim or the hero of your story? And in those downturns, when everything is sinking, we have this innate ability to turn ourselves into victims. And it's a really safe place to be, because when we get there, we don't expect much from ourselves. Things are going pretty crummy. Other victims find their way into our world. Inevitably, you'll get a phone call from somebody who just wants to make sure things aren't going too good for you, because misery loves company. And then conversely, the challenge that I put people up to is to find the hero that's hiding in that victim story. Somewhere within that story is somebody that really wants to come out and shine. And when you frame the story on the hero side versus the victim side, all of a sudden, miraculously, heroes start appearing into your world and opportunities arise that you never even dreamt of. The whole dynamic changes, and it never not works. In every victim story, there is a hero hiding somewhere. And the secret is to be able to identify that person and come to grips with the truth that there's good in every piece of bad, trying to just compartmentalize that noise and understand it's just part of the journey.
And it is interesting when bad things happen, it's easier if we all rise up together in that situation and try to make it better, try to, help each other out. And so I do think sometimes when there's tough circumstances, we do see a lot of people, rise to that hero status and just be that person who's, sweeping off the road, right?
Wonderfully said. And that's an amazing example. And when you see it on TV, it fills your soul if you allow it to. That's when the real heroes come out. It's tough to be heroic when things are tough. That's when the real heroes come out and shine.
So how do you help your clients get from that not so great place back out,
I think I have a multi-step formula, but step one is called define reality, because there's nobody better at fooling us than us. I always ask, if I do a lot of coaching very, very early in the morning, I like to put people in a very uncomfortable spot. So if they tell me they love to be coached in the evenings, I tell them I'll see them Thursday morning at 4:15 a.m. And they'll say, no, you didn't hear me. I said, I like to be coached in the evenings. And I say, I heard you loud and clear. I'll see you at 4:15 a.m. Let's agree that this is not the hour of convenience. This is the hour of champions, right? So we've got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. I'll say, is that true? Or are you telling yourself that because you think you're supposed to be tired? And then they scratch their head and they go, wow, I don't know. I thought I was tired. Now I'm not actually sure if I am or not. And what that does is it creates an alternative path. You're welcome to go back on the tired path because you already know what that feels like. Now there might be a I'm not tired path, and that might be filled with a lot of beautiful things down the road. So that's the first thing I do is establish the alternative path. Now it's like, sorry to tell you, you've got an opportunity to change. And we really get deep into their story. We rewind and we look for evidence of the fact, when they tell me they're not capable of doing things, we rewind into their story and we find multiple circumstances when they pulled themselves out of the doldrums. We use the stories. We try not to repeat the negative circumstances and find the things that worked, document them, try to repeat them over and over and over. And that helps us really. So about 6-7 months ago, I was sitting with my son in his office, and he had a childhood friend come in who grew up in the same town as us here in Northbrook, Illinois, which is just north of downtown Chicago. Actually moved out to Denver for school and then wound up in the investment banking business. I think he got making wealthy people wealthier and wound up taking the entrepreneurial route and getting into the e-commerce clothing business. And he said to me he had heard bits and pieces about my story and my struggle that helped me create the Hour of Champions. And that was really revolved around getting up super early in the morning and having a physical, mental, and spiritual workout all within an hour. And he looked at me and he said, wow, that was like some really gritty wellness. I said, Charlie, would you mind if I trademarked that? Like, I've never been able to encapsulate in 2 words what Hour of Champions means to me. And yeah, it's gritty wellness. And he said, really? I said, 100%. So went out, trademarked the name. I decided to start an online clothing brand because I wanted people to be able to wear this as a badge of honor, to say, this is the way I live my life. I work out, I'm spiritual, cognizant of mindset, and I incorporate all this stuff, and it really helps give me a great start to my day. So hopefully this will be a worldwide name someday. I'm trying to be an influencer at 65 years old.
You're influencing people we know all the time because we move in the same circles and we know you have great impact and you're helping people. Jeannie, I'm glad you got to hear that today because Steve had shared that with me last time we spoke.
Thank you.
It is so cool how Jeannie and I talk about this sometimes when it comes to like getting your message out there. Sometimes, I'm on a podcast interview and a host will ask me something and then I answer it. It just flies out of my mouth because maybe they ask me a question in a different way. And I'm like, why have I never said that way? Like I said in a podcast interview, well, we're not an outsourcing agency and we're not a marketing. We coach our clients and we train their virtual assistants. And that's what the most succinct we've ever said it. Is that right? Hours and hours of trying to get a message to come out and just, randomly it happens, when you're not expecting it. So I think that's so awesome that your son's friend helped you with that.
I was tongue twisted for 10 years. I would tell the different side of it all the time. I never had like a concise, just like pow, like it's just gritty wellness.
One of the other things, Steve, that I know that you teach is we can't change our stories, but we can change how we tell them. And that really feeds into not being the victim, right? Is that how you really encourage people to, like, we all have stories, we all have things that have happened in our lives that, weren't great, or we made bad decisions or whatever that is. So you talk to people about you can't change the story, but you can change how you tell that story.
That is correct. Again, that was laying in bed one night, just thinking about a story of my youth where my family kind of broke up. My parents got divorced and my sister and I were forced to move out of this big, beautiful home, with the best of everything. And the next thing you know, we're in a tiny little apartment with our immigrant grandparents. And I'm laying in bed going, what just happened? And I was a young kid. I was very angry, resentful, scared, bitter, embarrassed. And I told this story forever. I didn't know where to catch the school bus. I didn't know how to get to and from after school sports. I was towards everybody. And then, and it affected the way I live my life. I mean, I still run into people from high school that say to me, are you still angry? And that's only because if there's been 40-year periods where they haven't seen me. But truth be told, a few decades later, how lucky I was to have immigrant grandparents that in their retirement years came back and moved into the town where we lived to be able to take care of my sister and I, so we wouldn't have to change schools. We learned the value of money. We learned how to speak a second language. Our grandparents were immigrants. They spoke Yiddish, which is like a Hebrew German slang. And we helped them out, and we grocery shopped, and we figured out how to get to and from school. And we just grew up a lot quicker than other people. And the story was exactly the same. The way I spun it, the first way was the victim, and I lived it for a long time. And when I spun it the other way and I found the hero, that young hero in the story, it changed everything for me. And I'm so blessed to have had that experience. It was one of the highlights of my life, it turns out.
And you're probably older because you had that perspective of the gratitude and the appreciation for what your grandparents did. Like nobody has kids that think, oh my gosh, I hope I get to raise my grandchildren when I'm retired.
Right.
I hope I get to relocate to a whole new town in retirement to take care of little kids stepped up. And I'm sure that gratitude and appreciation as you became an adult for what they did made a big difference too in how you viewed the story.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I don't even know if they knew how to tell a victim story. They came from Eastern Europe at a they never had any. So for them, this was easy. This was way easier than trying to get from Poland during World War I to the US with no money. This was a breeze for them. They're like, you think this is hard? This is life. We love this. And when I thought about that and the unconditional love that they showered my sister and I with, my grandmother staying up late at night, making sure that I got home safely. I'd walk in the door and just like an old Eastern European lady, not a word, just to lock the door and go to bed because she knew I was home safe. I took me decades to understand what that meant and how grateful I really was for that.
Yeah, that's great. I remember my grandma came over as well from Sweden and went through Ellis Island. Her name and my grandfather's names are on the wall there. And, she was like your grandma was, she was just grateful for everything that she had. She had no anger, no, I deserve more or I was treated none of that. She just got what she needed to get done and lived as best she could and was grateful for it. It's amazing.
I've been able to rewind my story deep. And, sometimes my biggest hang up for the day is like, what golf course I'm going to play. And for my grandparents, it was like, do we eat this whole loaf of bread today or do we try to save it for 3 days? And that's life and that's noise. And my noise is pretty calm compared to that. That really gets me into reality that things are pretty good.
I know sometimes people feel, because it's really hard. If someone's having a hard time, you don't want to dismiss their feelings. If they're suffering, they're having a hard time, they've got a lot of anxiety. We all know that, compared to what other people have, and no right to feel maybe the way we do, but we do, right? So how do you work with people who, I'm kind of thinking of a friend that we have that's going through a difficult time and just has a ton of anxiety. How do you she logically knows, right, that she has everything to be grateful for. And she's definitely she's not a victim personality, but I think she's just so exhausted and run down and just overwhelmed. What would your advice be to someone like that? Because you're just saying, well, be grateful for what you have. You can come across as very insensitive or rewrite your story. Sometimes you can rewrite it when you're in the middle of it. So what would your advice be to someone like that?
Yeah, another great question. And anxiety is really fashionable right now, right? Like everybody's got anxiety and we're all racing therapy and medications. And what I found is a lot of the times the problem doesn't exist up here, it exists down here. Our souls are empty. And I came up with a cliche a few years ago that you can't cure a soul problem with a pill. And I think you and I might have talked about this in our initial conversation, but I asked, and if we didn't, I'll ask again. When we were young, we used to pull into a gas station and the attendant would ask our parents a few questions because there was no self-serve at the time. Number one, what kind of gasoline would you want? Number two, more often than not, can I check your oil? And I think that if we actually took that fictitious dipstick down into our soul and checked, we'd probably see we're a little short on gratitude. And I think we need to do things to fill up our soul. So what I tell people to do, or I ask them if they're willing to do, is maybe go into their closet and find a jacket or a sweater or some clothes or something that they can part with, and go find a homeless shelter and go drop it off and drive away. And I have to tell you that when you do that, the feeling in your soul of knowing that you just gave something to somebody that you'll never know, but you did it, is so healing, and it works all the time. There's always somebody that's got it tougher than us, and you had to say to somebody, you've got it great, you should be grateful. That doesn't solve any problems. But to maybe challenge them to go spend some time with themselves and go do something for somebody that they'll never know, that is a real rewarding way to get to turn that noise down a little bit. And for me, like I don't want to sound like yay Steve, but I do it frequently, where I'll just ask my kids, or I'll send a text to friends, please let me know if you have some old winter coats or sweaters. And I have a favorite charity here in the town that I grew up in, and I will just drive there and walk up the driveway and drop the clothes off in a bin. And if I'm having a bummer day, I walk away and I go, I feel so good. And I thank the universe for the fact that I will never know who gets those. That's the beauty of it, that I'll never know, but somebody will. And that makes a difference in the world.
Amazing. Steve, this has been incredible. Oh my gosh. I just always love our conversations, and I'm so grateful that you were able to be here with us today, because this, I think, is going to help a lot of people.
Well, thank you. It takes great questions to make a great interview. So thank you very much for asking great questions.
Thank you, Steve. We look forward to seeing you again soon. And if anybody listening wants to reach out to you, what is the best way for them to find you?
An easy way is through my website, hourofchampions.com. It's not, just to be clear, just simply Hour of Champions, HOUR. You can scroll down, you can book a call, and I'm bold enough on when I'm chatting with anybody to say that my phone number is 847-312-8777. And if you're real about change, I want to hear from you. Send me a text. I'd love to. I'll text you back by the end of business today, because I really only want to communicate with people that want to get serious, honestly. And I thank you so much for asking me that, and for letting me share on this platform as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll put all your information in the show notes so that people can reach out to you. But Steve, so much for being here and encouraging us, and being someone who is encouraging and helping others stay out of that victim mode. So thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Six Figure Business Mastery Podcast. If you enjoyed listening to this episode and you are ready to leverage video marketing on all online platforms, or maybe even start your own video podcast, then you need to check out the Done For You and Done With You program at themarketingvaadvantage.com and take your business to the next level.